Today I want to talk to you about some blood that was taken from Aboriginal people in communities all around Australia many years ago and try to get the story straight. People from a place called the National Centre for Indigenous Genomics, or NCIG for short, have been telling me about this. The little bit of the blood they call samples are still in Canberra and are stored at the NCIG at the Australian National University, known as the ANU. This mob reckon that it's important for us to know about the samples, and they want to work with us to understand what should happen to these samples. This is what I've learned about how our blood got there. I learned that in the 1960s, 70s and 80s, scientists were finding out about many different parts of our blood, like the parts called proteins that carry iron around the body. In those days, the scientists were interested in how these blood proteins were a little bit different in people from different places in the world. The scientists thought it was important to look at this to help them understand why people from some parts of the world would get sick, but others would stay healthy. The same kind of blood samples were collected from communities all around the world and then taken to be stored in freezers. Freezing blood samples keeps the stories in them for a long time. Some of the samples in Canberra are still blood, but most have been made into other things that look clear like water or yellowish. These things have different names. But even the samples that do not look like blood are very important because they all have small things inside them called DNA. This is a very small thing that can be looked at to tell doctors and scientists information. All the DNA of one person together is called the genome. We can call the DNA stories or laws that are inside us. They come from both our mother and our father, and they tell our bodies what to do. We get one copy of our genome in our body, one pass from our mother and one pass from our father. It's why we look and act like our parents a lot. This DNA came to them from their parents, our grandmothers and grandfathers. We pass our DNA to our children by our sperm and egg that makes our baby. The DNA stories keep on being spread into the families every time when new babies are born, so that when people live in the same place for a long time and marry each other, these people can share some of their DNA stories with other people from the same area. That means that when we look into the DNA stories for a person, we also see a little part of the DNA stories of their ancestors from thousands of years ago. This might be interesting for some Aboriginal people who want to hear about the scientists' DNA stories of how different mob might have moved around the country thousands of years ago. These stories might be a bit like the stories people already know about ancestors and country. Other people are not interested in those scientists' stories. That is okay. Knowing the DNA stories can also help scientists to understand why some families have lots of people with diseases like diabetes and kidney problems, and other families have only a few. It can also help us understand why medicines work well for some people, but for other people they don't work or can even make them sick.